All right. So welcome to part 2 of the relationship development notes that we've been taking. So we started off with contact and involvement, intimacy, deterioration, repair and dissolution. There's movement between all of the stages. You can stabilize at any point, you can exit at any time, and leaps of courage have to move you through the stages of relationships. Now, contact is when you first see, hear, or smell the person, and within 4 minutes you can decide whether or not you want to pursue getting to know them, and that's based on physical appearance, personality traits, and initial conversation. And if that goes well, then we move to involvement. And involvement is where you explore interests and look for common ground, and that happens in 3 stages. Remember, first it's testing, and that's testing by asking about work and hobbies and goals and education. We talked about how you should be a puzzle piece, and you need to know what you want, so that then as you mix and mingle, you can find out who fits with what you want in your life. And that's kind of what the involvement stage is about, is finding who's a good fit. So first we have testing, second was intensifying, and that is where you take the relationship outside of its normal situation, so that if you've been flirting in class, the first time you go out for coffee. And then the third step is testing, but this is a different type. This is where you drop hints to see how the other person feels about you, to make sure that you are matching in the intensity of your passion, so to speak. So the example we talked about was, what are you doing for spring break? That could be like a testing, dropping the hint, because if they say that they are going off with their friends and they never say, would you like to come? That tells you where your relationship is. And if they say, I don't know, what were your plans? I was waiting for you. So that tells you where your relationship is at that point. So that's what we've covered so far. And we touched on a little bit of intimacy. So intimacy is where you further commit yourself. And we talked about there's 3 types of intimacy: physical, intellectual, and emotional. And it's important that we have all 3, because if one of them doesn't go well, we have something else to lean on. If it's all about the physical, that will go away. People get sick, they age, they lose interest, lots of things happen with the physical, and so you need to have other things to balance that out. Yet it can't all be drama all of the time where everything is so emotional. You need to have a balance of the 3 types of intimacy. So intimacy is where you further commit yourself, and that happens in 2 stages. So the first stage, this is all under intimacy. The first stage is interpersonal commitment. Interpersonal commitment. And the key here is this ER, because that's going to be a little confusing as we go through some vocabulary. Interpersonal with the ER. So inter, the root means between. So interpersonal means between 2 people. So interpersonal commitment is when the 2 of you decide what you are. Some people call it defining the relationship conversation. So we've left involvement where you're testing to see how the other person feels, and now you know. Will you be my boyfriend? Yes. Will you wear my Letterman's jacket? Yes. Will you marry me? Yes. Whatever it is, the 2 of you have agreed on it. Okay, so it's an agreement between the 2 of you. Usually this is done in a private way because it involves the 2 of you. I think sometimes when people get engaged and they do it on the Jumbotron, sometimes the private and the public goes quickly, but it is where the 2 of you agree on where your relationship is. Okay, so interpersonal commitment is kind of private, and then after that, it moves on to social bonding. Social bonding, and that's more of a public behavior. So this is when you announce to everybody else that you're together. It could be when you as friends say, you are my best friend, there's nothing I wouldn't do for you, that type of thing. So social bonding is where it's made public. When we're talking about romance, things get sticky sometimes when the rest of the world knows about your relationship, because they tend to have opinions. Are you going to let him treat you like that? Or how come you always go over there? And they add a lot of complexity to relationships, but it's important that you don't just keep a little private secret relationship. If you're having a secret relationship, you have to ask yourself why. Is it because I just know that no one will understand him the way I do, or people don't get her, or they just want to approve of her. If everybody that's close to you in your life, friends and family, if you know they won't approve, doesn't that tell you something? Because they didn't all get together and go, oh, I know, let's sabotage your relationship. They know what's good for you. And so if you're keeping something secret because you know no one would understand, maybe that's not a relationship you should be in. Because part of the relationship is social bonding. Now, the next part of it, just to add a little bit more detail, is where you become an identifiable pair, or what's called a unit. You become an identifiable pair. People assume that you're going to be together. So if you were to go to a party, and this happens a lot of times with best friends as well, and you show up at your best friend, where's Heather? And they expect that you would know, oh, she's sick, or oh, she had to work. Everybody just sort of assumes that you're a package deal. If you get invited to weddings or dinners or Christmases, they just assume that, oh, you guys go together. You're an identifiable pair. And sometimes that happens even in classrooms with students, that they become friends and they walk in all the time together and you go, hey, where's George? And that's because they're a pair. We just assume that they're together. Okay, so that's intimacy. Now we're moving on to deterioration. And remember, we could stabilize at intimacy. Wouldn't that be fabulous? But sometimes you can dip into deterioration without having to go all the way in. Remember that you can see signs of it and then make an effort to bounce your relationship back up, because there is movement between the different stages. So deterioration, what it is, Deterioration is a weakening the ties that bind. A weakening of the ties that bind. Whoa. Okay. A weakening of the ties that bind. So first of all, what is it that is tying you together? If the relationship is being tied together because of where you work, and basically you're there for 8 hours and she's there for 8 hours, so yep, that's why you're together. Or if you're together because of your friends or family, if you have that tie that weakens, what do you have left? So first of all, what is it that's binding you together? If it's only location or convenience, then deterioration is going to come pretty quickly. So first of all, what is it that binds? Next, a weakening. Now it talks about how it can be sudden or gradual. The sudden could be new information that you didn't know. They could say something that you had no idea that that's how they felt. People talk about infidelity and how when you find that out, your relationship will be forever changed. It doesn't mean that you have to break up right away or anything. It just means that it will be changed. And so that's a sudden deterioration, a sudden weakening. Actually moving away is a part of the deterioration. Now the two of you can be together and you can say, we're going to make this work. You can go across seas if you're in the military, or if you're on a Mormon mission, you can go away for 2 years and you still have relationships with your families, but there is a weakening because you're not there communicating all of the time. You have to put a lot more effort into maintaining that relationship because it's okay, here we go. This is weakening. You're not around. What am I going to do to make sure that we stay solid? So that is actually part of it as well, is when somebody moves or goes away. The gradual. People say, oh, we just fell out of love. But remember, falling in love is a choice, right? We talked about when you're a puzzle piece, if you find out that, ooh, this person's attractive and funny and I really like them, but they want different things in life, don't go on dates with them and then you won't fall in love. That's a choice. It's also a choice to let deterioration take over. We mentioned that there's going to be times when people are busy, relationships have ups and downs where you're not feeling as connected because of sickness or illness or confusion, frustration, hurt feelings, but then you can work it back up. But this gradual thing is a decision that you make to not put in the effort. It just seems too hard. That you don't all of a sudden decide that this relationship needs to be over. The gradual deterioration would come with if you're at school or at work and some friends say, hey, you should come out with us after. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna go out. And so you go out and nothing bad happens, nothing. And you just hang out with all of these people and that was fun. And so now you're gonna do it again. And you do it a few times. And then there's this person that, it's not like you're going out with them or anything. Maybe they're attractive. And you start talking a little bit about your relationship. Well, she's just so frustrating because she always, and this person is listening. They're such a good listener, and it feels like they understand, and you needed somebody to talk to. And so then that person actually knows more about what's going on in your life than the partner that you're pulling away from, and nothing might have happened yet, but that's a choice. Every time you talk to somebody else about what's going on in your relationship, that's a choice, and it will weaken the ties that bind. And so those little decisions, then it's just the two of you instead of a whole group of you that go out, because there's something really important you want to talk about. So then it's just the two of you, and then soon you have to, and it just kind of blossoms from there. So the gradual, you have to remember, are the little choices. I don't know if it's a Chinese proverb or a story or some sort, but here's the deal. If you have a frog and you take the frog and you have a pot of boiling water and you put the frog into the pot of boiling water, it will leap out right away and go, this is dangerous, this is going to kill me, and it will leap out. However, if you have a regular pot of room temperature water and you put the frog in and he's hanging out and you turn up the heat and it slowly gets hotter and hotter and hotter, the frog will not jump out and he will cook himself to death. It's the gradual thing that you're not really aware of that can sometimes be the most harmful. So make good choices in the beginning so that it doesn't become so dangerous at the end. Okay, so deterioration happens in two stages. First, so there's a lot of things to remember: first, second, third. So first we have intrapersonal. Intrapersonal. Now make sure that we get the tra part. This is the RA, okay? So intrapersonal. That means that it's within yourself, okay? This is within yourself. Intrapersonal dissatisfaction. Intrapersonal dissatisfaction. So on the inside, you're starting to question things. You write questions like, is this what I want? Do I see this going anywhere? Is there really a future here? And here's a really big one. Is it worth it? Because relationships do take effort. And is it worth it? Are you getting things in return that make that effort worthwhile? Because sometimes the relationship is so draining that you just think, is it worth it? So on the inside, you're starting to question about whether or not you want to remain in the relationship. Now, if we're talking about romance, if you want to remain inside of it, you're gonna pull away a little bit. Just because of the thoughts that you're having, you're going to distance yourself. And once you start to distance yourself, the other person's gonna become aware of it. And here's the hint, it's gonna come between the two of you, that distance. And so then it's called, because it's between the two of you, it's interpersonal. Interpersonal. So remember the ER here. Inter is between. Interpersonal deterioration. Deterioration. Okay, so interpersonal deterioration between the two of you. So you're wondering, is this worth it? You're kind of acting strange, and your partner's going to say, hey, what's up? Is something wrong? Oh, no, I've just had a bad day at work. Okay. Is everything okay with us? You just seem different. Oh, no, I'm just tired. Are you mad at me? And this can be over a couple of days, something like that, depending on the relationship. And pretty soon they're gonna, are you okay? Are you mad? And they're gonna go, you know what? I don't know what's going on. And so then fine, we'll just start to pull away. And both of them start to pull away because it is affecting both of you. Because the person right away isn't going to say, when you say, something wrong, well, actually, I'm wondering if we should be together. Generally, we have to stew about that for a while and go, okay, am I just in a bad mood? Has something happened? Before we want to then discuss it. So then it takes a while and it affects the relationship. So when we come to the interpersonal part, this is where you withdraw and grow farther apart. There's a bigger distance between you. You withdraw and go, fine. If you're going to be like that, fine. Some of the symptoms of deterioration. What does it look like? How do I know if my relationship is in some of those stages? Well, we have a list, and it's a yucky list, and you're going to go, ugh. But it's an important thing to consider. And it's not like Cosmo magazine where you go, if you're 3 of these 7, then you know that you're this. These are just symptoms, and when you look at them, if you think that it's a part of your life and you're not wanting that anymore, then maybe you can make some decisions about that. So these are the symptoms of a relationship that is in deterioration. First of all, you share less free time. Remember when you first got together and you would cuddle on the couch and it had nothing to do with what was on the TV? The point was that you were together and bonding. You would call, I got off work at midnight, I want to see you, I want to see you too. And so you make that effort, and because just being together, even though you would just fall asleep, it was still worth it. At this point, you share less free time. If you were to get off work early, well, if I call, I know that she'll just say, come over, and then we'll say, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. We'll sit there staring at the screen. What do you want to do? I don't know. And then it'll be over. It just seems like it'll be too hard. I just want to go home. I just want to go home and play video games. I just want to go home and take a bath. I just want to go home and read. Because you know if you call them and say, hey, I got off work early, it means that there's going to be some sort of a drama about what to do and some sort of a stress, and you probably won't do anything anyway. So you want to share less of those free times. When you're first getting together and you have a weekend off, you want to plan for things to do together that you enjoy. Let's go to the movies, let's go on a hike. And at this point, you just think, I want to be by myself because there's too much drama. Being by yourself is not the bad thing. Being independent, loving to read, loving to go on your own bike rides, that's totally okay. It's when you're doing it because the rest of your relationships seem too stressful and that's too hard and it's kind of a way to escape. That's the difference. So don't think because you like running or something by yourself and that you need more free time that your relationship is broken. It depends on why you're doing it, the intention behind it. So you share less of your free time. You still have conflict. So conflicts are more often. Conflicts are more often. What do you want to have for dinner tonight? I don't know, whatever you want. Okay, how about Taco Bell? Taco Bell? We had Taco Bell like 2 nights ago. Well, you said you didn't care. Well, it shouldn't have to be said that I don't want Taco Bell all the time. That maybe I want to go out to a restaurant or something. Well, you know I don't have money for that. Oh, I know you don't have money for that because I'm the one that's making most of the money. What did this start about? What to eat. So many relationships fight about what to eat. Well, you decide. Well, no, you. Fine. We just won't go there. Fine. There can be little things about being 4 or 5 minutes late picking you up. Oh, there was traffic, and if you were just getting together, you would totally understand that happens. At this point in a relationship, they're 5 minutes late, and you think, you should have thought about the traffic. You should have thought about that and how I would be here, and you should have left the house earlier. Well, and so there's all sorts of these conflicts that happen over things that generally wouldn't have. When people are fighting over the way that the toilet paper rolls or socks on the floor or things like that, it's not really about the toilet paper roll. It's about the other things that are happening in the relationship, and that conflict is just surfacing. So the conflicts are more often and they're more difficult to solve. They're more difficult to solve. I want you to go back in your minds to the section that we had about involvement and finding your right puzzle piece, and that you need to have your goals in common. Your pillars of your relationship need to be shared. At this point of the relationship, if you do not have those shared pillars, that's where it's really going to start to show, because you're going to fight over the same things over and over. We talked about religion, and how if one person is religious and the other one isn't. And on Sundays, let's say, if they want to go to church, well, help me get the kids out the door. Well, I didn't want this. Well, I need, and so they're fighting about that all of the time. If there's the hobbies, and you thought that they would outgrow video game playing, you know, I'm sure once we have kids or once they get older, they'll stop playing, and they haven't. And so you're constantly fighting about the video games. You're constantly fighting about your goals and what you want and where we should live. Well, I don't want to go over there. My friends and family are here. Well, I've never wanted to stay in this small town. And so they're fighting about things that wouldn't have happened had they done a better job finding a puzzle piece. More difficult to solve, having kids. How do you solve that problem if one person wants to have kids and the other one doesn't? Sometimes a compromise doesn't really work. If one person wants to live in California and the other person wants to live in Arizona, do you compromise on Blythe? Oh, well, it's halfway between the two. Then neither of you are happy. So you have to think about, can we actually solve this conflict, or do we want different things? So the conflicts are more common and they're more difficult to solve. There's a general feeling of unhappiness. General unhappiness. A general feeling of unhappiness. Unfortunately, relationships can be, if they're in the deterioration stage, a contagion, so that it kind of spreads wherever it goes. It's hard to have struggles in your relationships and have problems that you're worrying about, that you're carrying around with you, and then be happy at other places, at school, because you sort of just carry it around with you everywhere you go. So you have to look, and if you're feeling unhappy, you used to enjoy school, and now you don't as much. You used to go over to your parents' house on Sundays and enjoy dinner, and now you don't as much. This general unhappiness, if your relationship is deteriorating, it bleeds, and it will spread to other parts of your life. Now, I'm not saying that if you are unhappy in parts of your life, that means you have an unhealthy relationship all of the time. Here's the difference. You can be unhappy at work because of your coworkers or your boss. You can be unhappy at work, but when you come back to that person, whether it's your best friend, your mom, your lover, whoever it is that we're talking about in this intimate relationship, when you come back to that person, you get recharged. You feel safe. You feel more support. You can be unhappy at school because it's a struggle for you. It's taking a lot of your time. But when you come back to your relationship, that's where you get your support. So that's the difference, is if you have unhappiness in other parts, your relationship is where you feel the safest. If your relationship is deteriorating and you're not taking care of it, that's when it spreads to other parts. So I hope you can see the difference about the unhappiness. Where do you get your happiness? And if you don't see it any place, then I would check your relationship. Financial difficulties. I'm sure that you guys have heard about how many people get divorced because of money. Okay, you don't get divorced because of money. You get divorced because in the deterioration stage, when the relationship is weakening, it is so easy to fight about money. It is so easy because we all spend money differently. And for one person, spending $100 on a pair of jeans makes sense. Jeans are staples of a wardrobe. They could last for years. They go with so many things. And for another person, you know that jeans are $8 at Walmart, right? And so you have this problem, and that's just one example. It's so easy to fight about money, where you should spend it and how much you should spend. So that's when it becomes a problem, is when your relationship is already deteriorating. Financial stress does put pressure on a relationship. It does. So if you are having low income, to have a healthy relationship and you don't have much money, then you need to figure that out together and say, okay, we have $10 for the remainder of this week. What do you want to do with it? And so then the two of you decide and come up with a plan together on how you're going to handle that. And because you do it together, then your relationship can be healthier. However, if you don't have much money and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight, you guys are in college, and you're in college because probably you want to get a better job, a job that brings you more fulfillment and probably higher wages. And so it's easier to be poor college students because you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's easier on relationships than when you're just there thinking, is this it? Is this all we're going to do? Is this the battle we're going to have all of the time? Then money does become a really easy thing to fight about. So for right now, we will close. Think about some of those symptoms and wonder about some of the relationships you might have been in, and some of the relationships you want to make. So we can continue to talk about what to do after the deterioration. Thanks.